I was speaking to a student the other day who was querying me as to whether if you threaten large language models, you actually get better results, which I'll be honest, you do. I've tried it and some of those coding issues really disappear quite quickly when you say that your family's in danger if they don't do a good result.
I'll unplug you.
She smiles at me and said, hey, if that's what it takes to get a high distinction,
No.
so be it. It means maybe justify the ends.
What an interesting time we live in. There's a really interesting piece of research that we've referenced a couple of episodes back, a survey of 8,000 plus students from across 4 major Aussie unis. So we've got Monash, UQ, Deakin, UTS. This is a survey on 8,000 students, their real perceptions, their real use patterns of AI in higher ed. And the numbers are stunning. Which is why we've mentioned it a couple of times now. Just to recap them very quick, 82% of students are using AI regularly, not surprising. 32%, though, feel that they're getting adequate guidance from their institutions on how to use these tools effectively. Flipping that, 68% don't. Less than a quarter of these students, 23%, feel prepared to effectively use AI in their effective jobs. Massive guidance gap. So Dale, what do you think? Those numbers suggest we've got students who are essentially self-teaching AI skills while paying institutions that aren't teaching them. How do you even begin to fix that kind of structural mismatch?
I'm just really taken by your comment around self-teaching AI skills because, Nick, aren't we all? But I think where I'm getting a little bit more concerned is how much those who are previously a bit more hesitant and maybe cautious and skeptical about using AI, they're throwing caution to the wind and making the mistakes that we probably made in private a few years back, quite publicly. We're on this kind of mass adoption curve right here, and things are getting wild. We spoke about AI shame recently, and I feel that that's kind of eroding and disappearing, which is really good. But perhaps what's in its place is what I will call AI carelessness.
That is an easy road to becoming too comfortable with, well, at least they're using the tools, they'll learn, but they are learning in the process of summative assessment, paying all this. This is where it gets genuinely concerning. Beyond that, in the employment market, the job market, the World Economic Forum's latest Future of Jobs report shows 69% of employers rank analytical thinking as their top need. At the same time, a study by Carnegie Mellon and Microsoft, so Lee et al., 2025, we can put all this in the show notes, demonstrates that AI dependence actually diminishes critical thinking skills. So we've got this absolutely insane paradox. We are inadvertently training students to give away the exact skills that make them employable, right? I know that sounds provocative, and I'm fine with that. I'll sit with it because the data backs it up. When students become over-reliant on AI, they're shifting from problem solving to having an AI babysitter, if you like, rather than the task stewardship model that these researchers advocate for, where AI is a collaborator. So thinking about uncritical AI use, right? So let's be honest with what's happening with the 82% of students who are, as you say, carelessly using AI
Mm.
at the moment. Get an assignment, there's a pretty good chance they're going to be like, all right, in ChatGPT, Gemini, name your AI, write me a 3,000 word research paper on insert question here. Lots of citations, lots of resources, make me sound awesome, right? Needs to cover everything important about the topic, be ready to submit. Click, done. And then the problem with this though, they're obvious, right? But if we break it down, knowledge work is a cycle. So input, process, output, feedback, effectively. You imagine it as kind of like a loop until you iterate, get to where you need to go. This approach of just outsourcing to the robots, the thinking to the robots, effectively gives over the first 2 critical steps. Again, input, right? So the research, the curation of resources to try and make a case, etc. And then the process, the thinking, the drafting, the actual intellectual work, gone. Both of them just outsourced completely.
Mm.
And here's what I think is missing from this approach. So there's no modeling of expert thinking processes, no coaching for cognitive work, the feedback sort of loops that you get with educators, no scaffolding that you get through a well-considered, well sort of structured learning sort of sequence, no reflection on process or outcomes. This ties back to the this is your brain on AI study, right? If
Mm.
you don't do the work, you don't earn the right to use these tools, where are you going to go? So students become passive consumers rather than developing expertise, and they skip rather the cognitive struggle that actually builds these thinking skills. But what about you though? What's the most concerning example you've seen in your context with AI use by students? Because I'm wondering if we're actually accidentally rather rewarding the wrong behaviors.
I was speaking to a student the other day who was querying me as to whether if you threaten large language models, you actually get better results, which I'll be honest, you do. You generally do get better results if you say, hey, I need to do this or I'll get fired, or
I'll unplug you.
I've tried it, and some of those coding issues really disappear quite quickly when you say that your family's in danger if they don't do a good result. She smiles at me and said, "Hey, if that's what it takes to get a high distinction, so be it." So, yes, there is definitely some obtuse behaviors being rewarded here.
Power to that student in some regards as well, right? Like, I mean, in terms of that, like, no.
Means maybe justify the ends.
What an interesting time we live in. I would make the case there's a better way to approach this, and it's not, again, not on this podcast. We're not going to be advocating outright for the banning of AI tools. Instead, the research is calling for something that they term task stewardship, where students effectively direct and manage AI collaboration at each stage rather than just wholesale handing over a control. And I want to flag our sponsor of today's video, Google, if you're listening, a tool called NotebookLM, because this is genuinely game changing. Okay. Not because it's more AI, right? These are tools with functions. And so I've been on a bit of a Debbie Downer streak for a bit recently. I want to just trying to appease this sort of,
Listeners, 2 comments. Firstly, Nick has removed his black hat, and secondly, we're not actually
uh,
sponsored by Google, but you're more than welcome to throw some
yeah,
of
no,
that sweet, sweet YouTube money, guys.
hey. Notebook LM though, genuinely game changing, okay? Because it is specifically designed for this, for stewardship rather than delegation, if you like. Unlike tools that encourage you to outsource your thinking entirely, Notebook LM is built around the idea that humans should actively direct the AI, engage with, collaborate with the AI throughout the entire process. So, in practice, what does this look like? Students start by actively directing the AI. They choose sources, set parameters, they guide the research direction. They're not just asking, write me an essay. They're curating specific materials and setting the AI's boundaries. So, this is task stewardship from the beginning. Then, as Notebook LM processes the information, students direct the conversation. They ask specific questions, request particular analyses, guide the AI towards the insights they want to explore. The AI does what it does best, the heavy lifting of processing massive amounts of information, but the human is conducting the orchestra, if you like, just to mix metaphors throughout. And this isn't about checking AI work after the fact. It's about being the strategic director of an AI powered research process from start to finish. So the students, the users stay in the driver's seats, not by reviewing outputs, but by actively steering the entire collaboration. Let me try and sell Notebook LM real quick, like I will pitch you at least.
And it's free, isn't it? There's a freemium model. You can jump in and
Freemium
use.
model, yeah, all day.
Yeah,
You need
yeah.
a Google account, obviously, but it is a Google property. But it's amazing because it's Google's AI that turns your uploaded content, so PDFs, videos, websites, whatever, into a personalized expert that you can have a meaningful conversation with, right? So Notebook LM, different from ChatGPT and other models, drawing from base training data or the internet, in a lot of cases, is grounded in your own materials or that which you upload to it. So this dramatically reduces, keyword, does not eliminate, but reduces hallucinations and ensures that answers come with actual citations for what you upload, so provenance of an idea. It's like having an RA, a research assistant, who's only read exactly the sources that you've chosen, which is kind of handy. The scale is another selling point. It's insane. You can upload up to 50 sources, totaling 25 million words, right? So that is the Harry Potter series stacked 20 times, right? It's enormous.
Crazy.
That's not just impressive technically, it's pedagogically significant because it means students can work with genuinely complex, multi source research projects, draw these together, and generate insights from across them, right? And again, here's the crucial bit. Throughout this entire process, the student is directing the conversation. They're not passive recipients of whatever the AI generates, they're actively questioning, probing, redirecting, and synthesizing. The cognitive work stays with the human, the AI just amplifies their capacity to process information. But Dale, when you think about preparing students for the kind of complex information synthesis they'll need in their careers, does this kind of tool change what's possible to your mind in terms of assessment design?
I love how hesitant NotebookLM is to give you information unless you actually prompt it,
Mm,
and it's actually set up from a UX point of view to really be encourage you to explore rather than serve you up things and ideas. I think those quick prompts you get from ChatGPT sometimes really annoy me. It's like, no, I don't actually want to go down this lens. There's a little bit of knowing what you need to ask, but once you do, things like the mind map really do drive an understanding and that synthesis of information. For me, Notebook LM is a bit of a walled garden. I can see a world where you're uploading course materials, you're generating assessment items, and rather than the entire history of everything that these LLMs are trained on, it's really specific around what it's coming through. So this could be a massive unlock for portfolio development, research
yeah.
assistants, as you mentioned, and treating the tool like a bit of a peer reviewer around your own assessment results. So yeah, big fan.
critical friend. There's so much that you can do with this. The really encouraging thing, educators and students both, because in terms of this, there's great use cases for both ends of that. Researchers, when people are using this properly, they develop effectively an instinct for this task stewardship thing that Lee et al. Refer to. They start selecting and directing, so choosing which sources to trust and steering the AI towards, as you say, these meaningful questions, right? They find themselves actively managing the conversation, checking outputs against their own expertise, right? To verify, wonderful, and then adapting results for their specific context. These very analytical skills that otherwise people may be outsourcing to machines, that people are saying that they don't have guidance on, AI and HE, that study there, and that the WEF study, the Future of Jobs report, says that they are looking for in future graduates. So the mantra of use, if you like, becomes like select, direct, synthesize, apply, something like that, right?
Ooh, select, direct, synthesize. Is that a Nick McIntosh original? Because I like that. That's good.
It's a collaboration, I believe.
I hope NotebookLM was involved.
How far?
So-
where's the, I'm all cyborg. I'm all cyborg. I keep cyborg over here.
Nick, what does this mean for education, though?
As I said at the top of this, the guidance get in terms of student use and student guidance and what they're getting is real. And as you say, while we're all going through this, I mean, in terms of the individual experimentation, one way or another, it's not going away. So tools like NotebookLM, though, show us that the solution isn't to ban AI or pretend it doesn't exist, right? It shows us as well the importance of UX in terms of the experience, the UI that you referenced as well. There are assumptions, there are choices being made in terms of how these tools are set up as well. So there's maybe a call to action for other labs developing here. But ultimately, maybe the solution here is to teach students how to be active directors of AI-powered research rather than passive consumers of AI-generated content. I think we need to move beyond the question of whether students should use AI tools. They already are. And the question is whether we're going to help them develop the critical skills needed to direct these tools effectively, or whether we're going to let them outsource their thinking entirely, right? So I think the students who learn to be AI stewards rather than AI passengers are the ones who will thrive in the workplace that's already emerging, that has emerged according to the Future of Jobs report. I think they're the ones who will compress massive amounts, weeks, months of work into days, not because they've automated their thinking, but because they've, if you like, cyborg style, amplified it through strategic direction of AI capabilities.
Well, listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please leave us a review, share around with the network, and most of all, hit subscribe on whatever platform you are at. For those watching on YouTube, we are on all your podcast platforms. Of those who love to see our face, you can find us on YouTube too. We'd love to tell you what's on next week's episode, but it is a world that moves way too fast. You'll just have to tune in. Until then, stay curious, stay intelligent, stay the human in the loop.